Some clarifications about basic logic. So we have seen that deductive inferences are either valid or invalid depending on the structure of the argument, which allows the premises to support the conclusion. If the structure of the argument is such that the relationship between the premises and conclusion is interrupted, then it is invalid regardless of whether the premises are true. Let's look at this more in detail. In a deductively valid inference, the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises if the premises are true. In a deductive argument, the logical relation between the premises and the conclusion is such that the support is 100%. So, deductive arguments lend themselves to proofs. Inductive arguments, on the other hand, are more modest inferences. They can only claim that the conclusion likely or probably follows from the premises. Many scientific theories, for example, are accepted as true when they are supported by good empirical evidence. This kind of confirmation is inductive and is not a simple matter of deductive proofs. Asking for a deductive proof for the Big Bang theory, or the theory of evolution, for example, misses the point and demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how scientific progress is made. To clarify, scientific inquiry, or the scientific method, is essentially inductive, but also mobilizes deductive mathematical reasoning to test whether their model agrees with the observations. Deductive inferences are subject to evaluations of their validity. When the deduction is valid and all of its premises are true, we say that the argument is sound. A sound argument is a kind of proof, and rejecting the conclusion of a sound argument is the very definition of being illogical or even irrational. So, an invalid deduction, even when it features true statements, can never be sound. The requirements go hand in hand. A valid deduction is sound when it has the correct argument form and it has true premises. Informal fallacies, which are too numerous to list here, but are quite straightforwardly explained in the readings, can undermine the soundness of arguments. Consider, Gandalf has said that pit bulls are inherently vicious creatures. Vicious creatures make poor pets. Therefore, pit bulls make poor pets. This is a deductively valid inference because it follows the correct argument form. If the premises were true, then the conclusion would have to also be true. However, it is unsound and not true because it commits the fallacy of appealing to an unreliable authority, in this case Gandalf, who may be a great wizard, but is probably not an expert in canines. In fact, pit bulls, a variety of terriers, can make excellent pets and companions. There are other problems in this group of sentences, such as the ambiguity of terms like vicious and inherently, that can make meaningful dialogue difficult if not impossible until they are clarified. Inductive arguments are confirmed on the basis of the strength of their evidence. An inductive argument that features true or acceptable premises, that is, the kind of evidence that increases the likelihood of making accurate conclusions or predictions, then we say that it is reliable. Inductive inferences that are based on poor evidence are regarded as weak, and those with good supporting evidence are strong. A strong inductive inference can lead to reliable conclusions, but weak ones generally do not, except by accident. Consider, persons from X socioeconomic status or racial ethnic group have been observed performing poorly on standardized exams. Persons from Y socioeconomic status or racial ethnic group have been observed performing well on standardized exams. Therefore, persons from X will probably do poorly in college compared against persons from Y. Is this a strong or weak inductive inference? Is it reliable or unreliable? By the way, in light of the readings, you should be comfortable by now picking up on certain red flags that tell you when a correlation is being confused with causation. The focus of the readings, and therefore the quizzes thus far, have emphasized deductive inferences and the question of their validity, whether they are following the appropriate argument forms. Please note carefully the difference between the terms valid and sound, or more colloquially true, when describing arguments in logic. In the future, when you come across readings in philosophy, you should be able to gather what are the central premises and conclusions the author wants to deliver in that essay or chapter. Then, you can figure out whether or not those arguments are valid, that is, if they are free of any structural or formal fallacies. Then, you can further analyze them by looking carefully at the kinds of examples and words that are being used, or not used, to determine if any informal fallacies are being committed. There's much more that we could say about logic, including relevant symbology and terminology like quantifiers, predicates, and sets, and so forth, including Venn diagram exercises and truth table exercises. However, in this intro-level course, we are primarily interested in cultivating a certain way of reading and thinking about philosophical claims and literature. In the meantime, you should make sure that you are comfortably familiar with some of the most common informal fallacies that can undermine the soundness of arguments.